let me give you just a little background.
Okay,
What led up to the makeup of the tax committee.
okay,
In 2010, after the election, at that time had what we call the OCR, Organization for Committees and Rules.
okay,
And that was a committee of 9 people that made decisions on committees, committee chairs, committee vice chairs.
okay,
And I served as chair of that committee. But normally, the president's recommendations would carry quite a bit of weight. And
Mhm.
we might have changed a few things, but we set up a matrix and plug everybody in.
okay,
Well, at that point, we had quite a few moderates, but we didn't have enough moderates to populate every committee the way we would have liked. So we had to put all the conservatives someplace.
mm,
At that point, we had the tax committee, and we didn't anticipate anything really controversial. So we put Donovan in as chair of the tax committee and put more than normal share of all the conservatives on the tax committee, thinking we're in the middle of the recession, and we just can't imagine.
tax cuts.
Yeah, and we would have we thought we had the votes to kill anything that was bad. So,
Mm-hmm,
anyway, that's where we got to the personnel on the tax committee. And fast forward to 2012. 2012, if you remember the State of the State message, Ratback outlined what he wanted on this tax reduction and on the path to eliminate income tax.
right,
And anyway, during the session, the House ultimately passed pretty much what he wanted. And that House bill came to us, and as you all remember, we were just coming out of the recession. This was
Mhm.
the first year that
Mhm.
we could see the light at the end of the tunnel as far as getting a little more normal revenue into the state. And we thought there's no way that any kind of tax proposal like this is going to pass. Well, the House passed it, signed it at the Senate Tax Committee. You know, the Senate Tax Committee, as I was describing, was much more conservative than the rest of the Senate. And they passed a version that was very similar to what the House passed. Comes to the Senate floor.
right,
Well, during the debate on the Senate floor, we put some amendments on. One of those amendments puts back the deduction for mortgage interest,
mm-hmm,
which was
remember that,
one of the main amendments. Put back the deduction for charitable deductions. And those were 2 big items,
mm-hmm,
which made the fiscal note of that bill even worse.
right,
And anyway, their debate went on for quite a while, but ultimately, we killed the bill.
right, we'll
But
figure
anyway,
it out.
we were still in session,
Okay,
and I was presiding. And Jamie Lane, my executive assistant,
right,
comes to get me. She said, the governor's on the phone, he has to talk to you. So I stepped down and had John Rattle get up in the chair. So I get on the phone with the governor, and he immediately starts pleading with me for us to reconsider the bill. And now I'm going to paraphrase what I remember in this conversation.
Very good.
It's something to the effect that, I know this bill would wreck the state, we can't do it, it's bad policy. And those are probably not his exact words, but that's the gist of what he was telling me.
mm-hmm,
So finally, I agreed to ask our senators to reconsider. And and I forgot to tell you, he said he just needed something to go to conference with.
right,
And that's the rationale that he was using, and it's the reason I agreed to it, because, you know, what he said, if he really wanted to just talk about something in conference, I thought, well, we could grant that request.
which wouldn't be a
big
terribly unusual approach.
No, big mistake on my part, because being a Republican Senate President and Republican
Mhm.
Governor, I thought, well, you know, you have to do some things to work with the governor, and I took him at his word that, you know, he thought it was bad. So I asked our senators to reconsider. And we ended up with like a 25 to 15 positive votes. And this was, I think, toward the end of the regular session.
Mm-hmm,
I went to the conference committee started, and I made some suggestions. I think John Brattle, myself, some others, penciled out some thoughts on a very modest tax reduction, something we thought we could live with.
Okay.
Well, it was probably more than modest. It was significant, but it's compared to the bill that the House passed and what was going on in conference, it wasn't very much. Anyway, they didn't. The House didn't want to consider it. I assume the second floor did not want to consider it.
Hmm.
So ultimately, they came up with a conference committee report that was very similar to what the original House bill was, almost as bad in our view.
Okay.
So we were getting ready this particular day to vote on that. Discuss, debate the conference committee report and vote on it. We were told, found out this, and I don't remember what day it was, but that we were told that the governor went to the House Republican caucus and asked them to concur with the bill that we'd reconsidered, which is ultimately what we ended up with.
Mm-hmm.
So we went into session that day, and we had a number of conference committee reports.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to that one, and Les Donovan, committee chair for taxation, was describing the bill, describing the conference committee report.
Mm-hmm.
Well, after he went into detail on that, some of the other committee members started talking about it, and we immediately knew that there was a filibuster going on. Because at the same time, the House was trying to pass this concur on our bill. And this filibuster went on and on and on. Finally, Brattle gets up and says, I move the previous question. And we ruled that in order,
Mm-hmm.
and it made them furious because their whole purpose was to give the House time enough to pass this. Well, at the same time that this was going on, they're doing explanation of votes and
Right.
trying to close up things on that.
And I think about the Democrats for having explanation of votes in the House.
Right, yeah.
To try to
And he
slow them down.
cuts them off.
He did.
And anyway, these Donovan and all the other ultra conservatives started explanation of votes, and it went on and on and on and on. And so, in the meantime, the House finally, O'Neill cuts off the explanation of votes.
Mhm.
They do it. So at that point, everything's moot, and
Right.
so I declare that the voting and everything's over on that particular conference committee report because it's going to go to the governor,
Mm-hmm.
and of course he signs it.
Right.
You know, we spent that day. I spent quite a bit of time. Joshua Lewis, my chief of staff, spent quite a bit of time going to all of our senators to ask them to reconsider. Of course, the thanks we get is a primary in August to defeat us.
Right.